The commission is confronting really that sort of ugly side of the divide that still exists in Canada.
19 months of testimony from more than 1,400 families and survivors. The Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry finished its hearings this week, 3 years after Ottawa first called the inquiry. Commissioners now have until April 30th to submit a final report. What should Canadians expect to hear? Marion Buller is the Chief Commissioner of the National Inquiry, and she joins me now. Hi, Commissioner Buller. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. I just want to go over some of the numbers because even the ones we just spoke of are fascinating. But you heard from 1,484 family members and survivors. You held 15 community hearings across the country, consulted over 100 experts, heard from nearly 60 parties withstanding this week. Now that this portion of the inquiry is over, what comes next?
Well, I hear those numbers and I go, oh my goodness, we really did it, didn't we? And actually we've had over 400 submissions of artistic expression as well, so that adds to our numbers. But what comes next is really rolling up our sleeves and getting the hard work done of writing. The commissioners and I will be working with our legal and research teams to draft our final report. We're also going to be able to, on an individual basis, go and visit some of the penitentiaries and healing lodges across Canada, because that's been an area that we know we've been lacking, and we have to hear those voices.
The final report is due at the end of April. You and other commissioners had asked for more time. The federal government did not grant that time. Are you still concerned about that timeline, and what might it mean for the report?
Well, what it means right now is that we haven't been able to go into the depth for different areas, subject areas that we originally had hoped to be able to do. And also, there are a lot of subject areas that we just can't cover, such as elder abuse. That's a huge area. We can't even touch that.
So basically, it will narrow the scope of the report.
And the depth.
Do you think that that will impact the significance of it?
I don't think it will. I think we've heard from families and survivors very clearly all across Canada that there are certain gaps in services, there are changes that have to be made, and we're going to continue and develop those themes in our final report.
Has there been any communication with the government around the implementation of whatever comes of the report? And I ask because you look at something like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and how many of those resolutions were put forward, 94, I believe. I think only 33 have even been started, only 10 completed. So Canadians might be sitting there thinking, you know, is this going to be just another report that gets put on the shelf, or will the recommendations actually be implemented? What is your level of confidence that they will be implemented, and what kind of communication have you had with the federal government on that issue?
We haven't had communication with the federal government about that, and it would be inappropriate for us to do exactly that. But what we intend to do is frame our recommendations so that they are actionable, with deadlines, with accountability and reporting to the public. I have absolutely no doubt, after traveling across Canada and meeting families and survivors, that they are not going to let the government ignore our recommendations. They are going to hold the government's feet to the fire to ensure that the recommendations are implemented. They're not going to let go.
Does that mean that the recommendations, for example, when you say in the manner you're going to frame them, will they have a timeline attached to them? Will they have specific things that Canadians can then hold the government to account?
Absolutely. That's the most important thing. Timelines and accountability that would include reporting back to the public on a regular basis. And also that there be some sort of remedy if the work isn't done on time.
What is your response to, and I know we've spoken about this before, but there are certain organizations and stakeholders who have complained about the process of the inquiry, who even called for you to step down and other commissioners to step down. There has been a high level of staff turnover. How confident are you that this inquiry will do what it set out to do, and that it will actually benefit those people who had such high hopes invested in it?
I have no doubt. We have already started change. We've already started to meet our mandate because of the healing that's already happened. When people share their truths with us, that's a healing process for them. And we've heard countless stories of people who have gone on to heal from whatever tragedy or trauma they have experienced with their lost loved one or survival of violence themselves. And so we've heard from people saying things like, I went to the police and reported my abuser, and they took my complaint seriously. We've heard from people who've gone back to school. We've heard from people who've reconciled with family members. So that healing, that momentum has already started all across Canada. And then as we write our final report and have our recommendations, we're going to come in directly on point, addressing the systemic causes of all types of violence against Indigenous women.
And just to be sure, though, to be clear, you feel like you can do that despite the narrower scope and lack of depth that you referenced earlier.
Exactly.
How,
it won't be what we had hoped the final report would be, because, as you said, it's lacking some depth and some breadth. However, what we do report on will be bang on.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you, Commissioner Buller.
Thank you so
Appreciate your
much.
time very much.
Thank you.